Yes, and of course, as soon as I say it, we're live.
Oh,
Ah.
well.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a episode show thingamajig where Rincy does some awesome story time. So it's cats and coffee again.
Indeed. And we've come quite far with the Japanese fairy tales in the last few weeks. So let's see how far we get tonight. I don't think we can finish the entire book tonight.
I don't
Do
think
you?
I don't think you will be able to finish it. There's at least 6 stories left.
Yeah, I think we can do about half tonight. And there's one more story stream with Japanese fairy tales.
So we'll see if you can manage to finish the book before I get back at Helter Place. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Felicia did a photo shoot with new outfit and new cosplay ears. That's pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
So, as per usual, our lovely host Renitzi is going to tell some lovely stories. I will be shutting up during the stream. Hi, Doctor. And everything will be a-okay.
All right. And hi, Brahms and Vos.
Hi, Bram. Hi, Doctor.
Hi, everybody. And Ferals. Good
And
evening.
Pharos.
Glad you're all here. Let's see. We have the white hare and the crocodiles.
Get well soon, furry. Okay. Hares and
I'm sorry we
crocodiles.
don't. Well, I'm sorry we don't have a rabbit story, but we have a hare story. I don't know. Maybe hares like carrots too, but just imagine that they do. And you have someone to share the thought of all the carrots with. Maybe it'll make it better. The white hare and the crocodiles. Long, long ago, when all the animals could talk, there lived in the province of Inaba in Japan a little white hare. His home was on the island of Oki, and just across the sea was the mainland of Inaba. Now the hare wanted very much to cross over to Inaba. Day after day he would go out and sit on the shore and look longingly over the water in the direction of Inaba. And day after day he hoped to find some way of getting across. One day, as usual, the hare was standing on the beach, looking towards the mainland across the water, when he saw a great crocodile swimming near the island. "This is very lucky," thought the hare. "Now I shall be able to get my wish. I will ask the crocodile to carry me across the sea." But he was doubtful whether the crocodile would consent to do what he wanted. So he thought, instead of asking a favor, he would try to get what he wanted by a trick. So with a loud voice, he called to the crocodile and said, "Oh, Mr. Crocodile, isn't it a lovely day?" The crocodile, who had come out all by itself that day to enjoy the bright sunshine, was just beginning to feel a bit lonely when the hare's cheerful greeting broke the silence. The crocodile swam nearer the shore, very pleased to hear someone speak. "I wonder who it was that spoke to me just now. Was it you, Mr. Hare? You must be very lonely all by yourself." "Oh no, I am not at all lonely," said the hare. "But it was such a fine day, I came out here to enjoy myself. Won't you stop and play with me a little while?" The crocodile came out of the sea and sat on the shore. and the two played together for some time. Then the hare said, Mr. Crocodile, you live in the sea and I live on this island, and we do not often meet. So I know very little about you. Tell me, do you think the number of your company is greater than mine? Of course. There are more crocodiles than hares, answered the crocodile. Can you not see that for yourself? You live on this small island, while I live in the sea, which spreads through all parts of the world. So I call together all the crocodiles who dwell in the sea. You hares will be nothing compared to us. The crocodile was very conceited. The hare, who meant to play a trick on the crocodile, said, Do you think it's possible for you to call up enough crocodiles to form a line from this island across the sea to Inaba? The crocodile thought for a moment and then answered, Of course, it's possible. Then do try, said the artful hare, and I will count the number from here. The crocodile, who was very simple-minded, who hadn't the least idea that the hare intended to play a trick on him, agreed to do what the hare asked and said, Wait a little while, I go back into the sea and call my company together. The crocodile plunged into the sea and was gone for some time. The hare, meanwhile, waited patiently on the shore. At last, the crocodile appeared, bringing with him a large number of other crocodiles. Look, Mr. Hare, said the crocodile, it is nothing for my friends to form a line between here and Inaba. There are enough crocodiles to stretch from here to even as far as China or India. Did you ever see so many crocodiles? Then the whole company of crocodiles arranged themselves in the water so as to form a bridge between the island of Oki and the mainland of Inaba. When the hare saw the bridge of crocodiles, he said, How splendid! I did not believe this was possible. Now let me count you all. To do this, however, with your permission, I must walk over your backs to the other side. So please be so good as not to move, or else I shall fall into the sea and be drowned. So the hare hopped off the island onto the strange bridge of crocodiles, counting as he jumped from one crocodile's back to the other. Please keep quite still, or I shall not be able to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Thus the cunning hare walked right across to the mainland of Inaba. Not content with getting his wish, he began to jeer at the crocodiles instead of thanking them, and said as he leaped off the last one's back, Oh, you stupid crocodiles! Now I have done with you! And he was just about to run away as fast as he could. But he did not escape so easily, for so soon as the crocodiles understood that this was a trick played upon them by the hare so as to enable him to cross the sea, and that the hare was now laughing at them for their stupidity, they became furiously angry and made up their minds to take revenge. So some of them ran after the hare and caught him. And then they all surrounded the poor little animal and pulled out all of his fur. He cried out loudly and entreated them to spare him, but with each tuft of fur they pulled out, they said, Serve you right. When the crocodiles had pulled out the last bit of fur, they threw the poor hare on the beach and swam and all swam away laughing at what they had done. The hare was now in a pitiful plight. All his beautiful white fur had been pulled out, and his bare little body was quivering with pain and bleeding all over. He could hardly move, and all he could do was lie on the beach quite helpless and weep over the misfortune that had befallen him. Notwithstanding that it was a bit his own fault that had brought all this misery and suffering upon the white hare of Inaba, anyone seeing the poor little creature could not help feel sorry for him in this sad condition, for the crocodiles had been very cruel in their revenge. Just at this time, a number of men who looked like kings' sons happened to pass by, seeing the hare lying on the beach crying, stopped and asked what was the matter. The hare lifted up his head from between his paws and answered them, saying, I had a fight with some crocodiles, but I was beaten, and they pulled out all my fur and left me to suffer here. That is why I'm crying. Now one of these young men had had a bad and spiteful disposition, but he feigned kindness and said to the hare, I feel very sorry for you. If you will only try it, I know of a remedy which will cure your sore body. Go and bathe yourself in the sea, and then come and sit in the wind. This will make your fur grow again, and you will be just as you were before. Then all the young men passed on. The hare was very pleased, thinking that he had found a cure. He went and bathed in the sea, and then came out and sat where the wind could blow upon him. But as the wind blew and dried him, his skin became drawn and hardened, and the salt increased the pain so much that he rolled on the sand in agony and cried aloud. Just then, another king's son passed by, carrying a great bag on his back. He saw the hare and stopped and asked why he was crying so loudly. But the poor hare, remembering that he had been deceived by one very like the man who now spoke to him, did not answer, but continued to cry. But this man had a kind heart and looked at the hare very pityingly and said, You poor thing, I see that your fur is all pulled out and that your skin is quite bare. Who can have treated you so cruelly? When the hare heard these kind words, he felt very grateful to the man, and encouraged by his gentle manner, the hare told him all that had befallen him. The little animal hid nothing from his friend, but told him frankly how he had played a trick on the crocodiles, and how he had come across the bridge they had made, thinking that he wished to count their number, how he had jeered at them for their stupidity, and then how the crocodiles had revenged themselves on him. Then he went on to say how he had been deceived by a party of men who looked very like his kind friend, and the hare ended his long tale of woe by begging the man to give him some medicine that would cure him and make his fur grow again. When the hare had finished his story, the man was full of pity towards him, and said, I am very sorry for all you have suffered, but remember, it was only the consequence of the deceit you practiced on the crocodiles. I know, answered the sorrowful hare, but I have repented and made up my mind never to use deceit again, so I beg of you to show me how I may cure my sore body and make the fur grow again. Then I will tell you of a good remedy, said the man. First go and bathe well in that pond over there, and try to wash all the salt from your body. Then pick some of those kaba flowers that are growing near the edge of the water. Spread them on the ground and roll yourself on them. If you do this, the pollen will cause your fur to grow again, and you will be quite well in a little while. The hare was very glad to be told what to do so kindly. He crawled to the pond pointed out to him, bathed well in it, and then picked the kaba flowers growing near the water and rolled himself on them. To his amazement, even while he was doing this, he saw his nice white fur growing again. The pain ceased, and he felt just as he had done before all his misfortunes. The hare was overjoyed at his quick recovery and went hopping joyfully towards the young man who had helped him, and kneeling down at his feet said, "I cannot express my thanks for all you have done for me. It's my earnest wish to do something for you in return. Please tell me who you are." "I am no king's son as you think me. I am a fairy, and my name is Okuni Nushi no Mikoto," answered the man, "and those beings who passed here before me are my brothers. They have heard of a beautiful princess called Yakami who lives in the province of Inaba, and they are on their way to find her and ask her to marry one of them. But on this expedition I am only an attendant, so I am walking behind them with this great big bag on my back." The hare humbled himself before this great fairy Okuninushi no Mikoto, whom many in that part of the land worshipped as a god. "Oh, I did not know that you were Okuninushi no Mikoto. How kind you have been to me. It is impossible to believe that unkind fellow who sent me to bathe in the sea is one of your brothers. I am quite sure that the princess whom your brothers have gone to seek will refuse to be the bride of any of them, and will prefer you for your goodness of heart. I am quite sure that you will win her heart without intending to do so, and she will ask to be your bride." Okoni Nushi no Mikoto took no notice of what the hare said, but bidding the little animal goodbye, went on his way quickly, and soon overtook his brothers. He found them just entering the princess's gate. Just as the hare had said, the princess could not be persuaded to become the bride of any of the brothers. But when she looked at the kind brother's face, she went straight up to him and said, "To you I give myself." And so they were married. This is the end of the story. Okuninushi no Mikoto is worshipped by the people in some parts of Japan as a god, and the hare has become famous as the white hare of Inaba. But what became of the crocodiles? Nobody knows.
Moral of the story: don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's a good. That's probably accurate. Do you have any alternatives that are evil?
If you are a dick, then don't rub it in someone's face.
Yeah, don't tell.
Yeah. I mean, really, if
No,
if
no,
he, if you
oh,
just
no, be a dick, but don't be an obvious dick.
yeah. In this case, he could have just crossed the crocodile bridge, went like, okay, that's 10 of you. See you
Yeah.
later. Thank you. And it would have been okay.
Nothing would have happened.
No.
He would have found fame, but yeah, what did it bring him?
A moment of suffering. Just a moment, though. So
Yeah,
yeah, don't,
but
don't be a dick.
I don't think that he that it was life changing for the hare to become famous as the white hare. Like, yeah. Oh, look, I have white privilege.
Yeah. No, it's this one is felt a bit like I'm writing the story. I'm writing the story. I'm not interested in the story anymore. And they live happily ever after.
Yeah. The end. Just in the middle. Yeah.
It would have been a Brooke 9 story. Yes, exactly that. This could have exactly been that.
Yeah.
So no,
Hmm.
yeah, it's I mean, it went the right way, but it's suddenly it went like, eh,
Yeah. And we're done. Like, oh, is it that time already? You kids should have been to sleep.
yes, exactly
Yeah.
that.
So they married. Done.
Yeah, and what happened to them? They lived happily ever after. And about the hair, famous, and the crocodiles. I don't know. Go to sleep.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. I don't know. I think they're under your bed. Good night. Sweet dreams, darling. They're like, ooh,
So cruel.
under my bed. Yeah, so if you get out of bed tonight, I just wouldn't risk it, okay?
So you have a new nephew and niece now, right?
Yeah, but they don't understand this yet, so I have to wait
You're
before I
practicing
can
right
try it.
now.
I'm already thinking of the things I can tell them. Hmm.
The crocs are living in the now. Yeah, I'm. Now we all know what happened. The crocs went like, no, really, no, we're moving. This cannot stand. Bye bye.
Or the Crocs are famous, and we know them as Lacoste.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
I don't know either, but if it's just a logo, Lacoste has the crocodile logo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm
And
not.
no items made of crocodiles, for as far as I know.
Maybe it started that way, but it wasn't. It wasn't too lucrative.
Well, then that's a good thing as well, that it wasn't lucrative.
Mm?
Let's continue on to the next story.
Yes. And as for the chat, it was more talk about laxatives and Phoenicia being very furry.
Oh, in the photo shoot.
Yeah, I think so.
Being furry is always a good thing.
Oh, and Doctor is talking about trying Cybermen on the Belgian roads. Yes. I know what you mean, Doctor.
Mhm. All right.
Let's go.
The story of Prince Yamato Take. The insignia of the great Japanese Empire is composed of three treasures, which have been considered sacred and guarded with jealous care from time immemorial. These are the Yatano no Kagami, or the Mirror of Yata, the Yasakami no Magatama, or the Jewel of Yasakami, and the Murakumo no Tsurugi, or the Sword of Murakumo. These are three treasures of the empire. The Sword of Murakumo, afterwards known as Kusanagi no Tsugubi, or the grass-cleaving sword, is considered the most precious and most highly to be honored, for it is the symbol of strength to this nation of warriors and the talisman of invincibility for the emperor, while he holds it sacred in the shrine of his ancestors. Nearly 2,000 years ago, this sword was kept at the shrines of Ite, the temples dedicated to the worship of Amaterasu, the great and beautiful sun goddess, from whom the Japanese emperors were said to be descended. There is a story of a knightly adventure and daring which explains why the name of the sword was changed from that of Murakumo to Kasanagi. which means grass clearing. Once, many, many years ago, there was born a son to the Emperor Kaiko, the 12th in descent from the great Jimmu, the founder of the Japanese dynasty. This prince was the second son of the Emperor Kaiko, and he was named Yamato. From his childhood, he proved himself to be of remarkable strength, wisdom, and courage. And his father noticed with pride that he gave promise of great things, and he loved him even more than he did his elder son. Just time out for a second. Grass clearing. I just can't help but wondering if we're going. That sounds like a grass mower, and I'm wondering if we're about to get a story about an ancient grass mower of
The
some kind.
Lawnmower Man, Ancient Edo Edition.
But that's just a thought that I can't shake. I'm just gonna continue. We'll see how this one continues.
Good luck with the tongue twisters as well.
Ah, yeah, this one is challenging, but that's often the start. It'll probably get better. Now, when Prince Yamato had grown to manhood, in the olden days of Japanese history, a boy was considered to have reached man's estate at the early age of 16. The realm was much troubled by a band of outlaws whose chiefs were two brothers, Kumaso and Takeru. These rebels seemed to delight in rebelling against the king, in breaking the laws and defying all authority. At last, King Kaiko ordered his younger son, Prince Yamato, to subdue the brigands and, if possible, to rid the land of their evil lives. Prince Yamato was only 16 years of age. He had but reached his manhood according to the law, yet though he was such a youth in years, he possessed the dauntless spirit of a warrior of fuller age and knew not what fear was. Even then, there was no man who could rival him for courage and bold deeds, and he received his father's command with great joy. He at once made ready to start, and great was the stir in the precincts of the palace as he and his trusty followers gathered together and prepared for the expedition, and polished up their armor and donned it. Before he left his father's court, he went to pray at the shrine of Ise, and to take leave of his aunt, the Princess Yamato, for his heart was somewhat heavy at the thought of the dangers he had to face, and he felt that he needed the protection of his ancestors, Amaterasu, the sun goddess. The princess, his aunt, came out to give him a glad welcome and congratulated him on being trusted with so great a mission by his father, the king. She then gave him one of her gorgeous robes as a keepsake to go with him and to bring him good luck, saying that it would surely be of service to him on his adventure. She then wished him all success in his undertaking and bade him Godspeed. The young prince bowed low before his aunt and received her gracious gift with much pleasure and many respectful bows. "I will now set out," said the prince, and returning to the palace, he put himself at the head of his troops. Thus cheered by his aunt's blessing, he felt ready for all that might befall, and marching through the land, he went down to the southern island of Kyushu, the home of the brigands. Before many days had passed, he reached the southern island, and then slowly but surely made his way to the headquarters of the chiefs Kumaso and Takeru. He now met with great difficulties, for he found the country exceedingly wild and rough. The mountains were high and steep, the valleys dark and deep, and huge trees and boulders of rocks blocked up the road and stopped the progress of his army. It was all but impossible to go on. Though the prince was but a youth, he had the wisdom of years, and seeing that it was vain to try and lead his men further, he said to himself, "To attempt a fight in the battle of this impassable country, unknown to my men, only makes my task harder. We cannot clear the roads and fight as well. It is wiser for me to resort to stratagem and to come upon my enemies unawares. In that way, I may be able to kill them without much exertion." He now bade his army halt by the way. His wife, the princess Otatachibana, had accompanied him, and he bade her bring him the robe his aunt, the priestess of Ise, had given him, and to help him attire himself as a woman. With her help, he put on the robe and let his hair down till it flowed over his shoulders. Otachibana then brought him her comb, which he put in his black tresses, and then adorned himself with strings of strange jewels, just as you see in the picture. I don't know. When he had finished his unusual toilet, Ototachibana brought him her mirror. He smiled as he gazed at himself. The disguise was so perfect. He hardly knew himself, so changed was he. All traces of the warrior had disappeared, and in the shining surface was only a beautiful lady looked back at him. Thus completely disguised, he set out for the enemy's camp alone. In the folds of his silk gown, next his strong heart, was hidden a sharp dagger. The two chiefs, Kumaso and Takaru, were sitting in their tent, resting in the cool of the evening, when the prince approached. They were talking of the news which had recently been carried to them, that the king's son had entered their country with a large army determined to exterminate their band. They had both heard of their young warrior's renown, and for the first time in their wicked lives they felt afraid. In a pause in their talk, they happened to look up and saw through the door of the tent a beautiful woman robed in sumptuous garments coming toward them. Like an apparition of loveliness, she appeared in the soft twilight. Little did they dream that it was their enemy whose coming they so dreaded, who now stood before them in this disguise. "What a beautiful woman! Where has she come from?" said the astonished Kumaso, forgetting war and counsel and everything as he looked at the gentle intruder. He beckoned to the disguised prince and bade him sit down and serve them his wine. Yamato Take felt his heart swell with a fierce glee, for he now knew that his plan would succeed. However, he dissembled cleverly, and putting on a sweet air of shyness, he approached the rebel chief with slow steps and eyes glancing like a frightened deer. Charmed to distraction by the girl's loveliness, Kumaso drank cup after cup of wine for the pleasure of seeing her pour it out for him, till at last he was quite overcome with the quantity he had drunk. This was the moment for which the brave prince had been waiting. Flinging down the wine jar, he seized the tipsy and astonished Kumaso and quickly stabbed him to death with the dagger which he had secretly carried hidden in his breast. Takaru, the brigand's brother, was terror-struck as soon as he saw what was happening and tried to escape. But Prince Yamato was too quick for him. Ere he could reach the tent door, the prince was at his heel. His garments were clutched by a hand of iron, and a dagger flashed before his eyes, and he lay stabbed to the earth, dying, but not yet dead. "Wait 1 moment!" gasped the brigand painfully, and he seized the prince's hand. Yamato relaxed his hold somewhat and said, "Why should I pause, you villain?" The brigand raised himself fearfully and said, "Tell me whence you come and whom I have the honor of addressing. Hitherto I believed that my dead brother and I were the strongest men in the land, and that there was no one who could overcome us. Alone you have ventured into our stronghold. Alone you have attacked and killed us. Surely you are more than a mortal." Then the young prince answered with a proud smile, "I am the son of the king, and my name is Yamato, and I have been sent by my father as the avenger of evil to bring death to all rebels. No longer shall robbery and murder hold my people in terror." And he held the dagger dripping red above the rebel's head. "Ah," gasped the dying man with great effort, "I have often heard of you. You are indeed a strong man to have so easily overcome us. Allow me to give you a new name. From henceforth you shall be known as Yamato Take, or title I bequeath you as the bravest man in Yamato." And with these noble words, Takeru fell back and died. The prince, having thus successfully put an end to his father's enemies in the world, was prepared to return to the capital. On the way back, he passed through the province of Idam. Here he met with another outlaw named Itsumo Takaru, who he knew had done much harm in the land. Again he resorted to stratagem, and feigned friendship with the rebel under an assumed name. Having done this, he made a sword of wood and jammed it tightly in the shaft of his own strong sword. This he purposely buckled to his side and wore on every occasion when he expected to meet the third robber, Takaru. He now invited Takaru to the bank of the river Hinokawa and persuaded him to try a swim with him in the cool, refreshing waters of the river. As it was a hot summer's day, the rebel was nothing loath to take a plunge in the river. While his enemy was still swimming down the stream, the prince turned back and landed with all possible haste. Unperceived, he managed to change swords, putting his wooden one in place of the keen steel sword of Takeru. Knowing nothing of this, the brigand came up to the bank shortly. As soon as he had landed and donned his clothes, the prince came forward and asked him to cross swords with him to prove his skill, saying, "Let us prove which is the better swordsman of the two." The robber agreed with delight, feeling certain of victory, for he was famous as a fencer in his province, and he did not know who his adversary was. He seized quickly what he thought was his sword, and stood on guard to defend himself. Alas, for the rebel, the sword was the wooden one of the young prince, and in vain Takeru tried to unsheath it. It was jammed fast, not at all exerted strength could move it. Even if his efforts had been successful, the sword would have been of no use to him, for it was of wood. Yamato Take saw that his enemy was in power, and swinging high the sword he had taken from Takeru, he brought it down with great might and dexterity and cut off the robber's head. In this way, sometimes by using his wisdom, and sometimes by using his bodily strength, and at other times by resorting to craftiness, which was as much esteemed in those days as it is despised in these. He prevailed against all the king's foes one by one, and brought peace and, and rest to the land and the people. When he returned to the capital, the king praised him for his brave deeds and held a feast in the palace in honor of his safe coming home, and presented him with many rare gifts. From this time forth, the king loved him more than ever, and would not let Yamato Take go from his side, for he said that his son was now as precious to him as one of his arms. But the prince was not allowed to live an idle life long. When he was about 30 years old, news was brought that the Ainu race, the aborigines of the island of Japan, who had been conquered and pushed northwards by the Japanese, had rebelled in the eastern provinces, and leaving the vicinity which had been allotted to them, were causing great trouble in the land. The king decided that it was necessary to send an army to do battle with them and bring them to reason. But who was to lead the men? Prince Yamato Take at once offered to go and bring the newly arisen rebels into subjection. Now, as the king loved the prince dearly and could not bear to have him go out of his sight even for the length of one day, he was of course very loath to send him on this dangerous expedition. But in the whole army there was no warrior so strong or so brave as the prince his son, so that his majesty, unable to do otherwise, reluctantly complied with Yamato's wish. When the time came for the prince to start, the king gave him a spear called the 8 arms-length spear of the holly tree. The handle was probably made from the wood of the holly tree, and ordered him to set out to subjugate the eastern barbarians, as the Ainu were then called. The 8 arms-length spear of the holly tree of old days was prized by warriors just as much as the standard or banner is valued by a regiment in these modern days. When given by the king to his soldiers on the occasion of setting out for war, the prince respectfully and with great reverence received the king's spear, and, leaving the capital, marched with his army to the east. On his way he visited first all of the temples of Ise for worship, and his aunt, the princess of Yamato, and the high priestess came out to greet him. She it was who had given him her robe, which had proved such a boon to him before in helping him to overcome and slay the brigands of the west. He told her all that had happened to him, and of the great part her keepsake had played in the success of his previous undertaking, and thanked her very heartily. When she heard that he was starting out once again to do battle with his father's enemy, she went into the temple and reappeared bearing a sword and a beautiful bag which she had made herself, and which was full of flints, which in those times people used instead of matches for making fire. These she presented to him as a parting gift. The sword was the sword of Murakumo, one of the 3 sacred treasures which comprise the insignia of the Imperial House of Japan. No more auspicious talisman of luck and success could she have given her nephew, and she bade him use it in the hour of his greatest need. Yamato Take now bade farewell to his aunt, and once more, placing himself at the head of his men, he marched to the farthest east through the province of Owari, and then he reached the province of Suruga. Here the governor welcomed the prince right heartily and entertained him royally with many feasts. When these were over, The governor told his quest that his country was famous for its fine deer and proposed a deer hunt for the prince's amusement. The prince was utterly deceived by the cordiality of his host, which was all feigned, and gladly consented to join the hunt. The governor then led the prince to a wild and extensive plain where the grass grew high and in great abundance. Quite ignorant that the governor had laid a trap for him with the desire to compass his death, the prince began to ride hard and hunt down the deer, when all of a sudden, to his amazement, he saw flames and smoke bursting out from the bush in front of him. Realizing his danger, he tried to retreat, but no sooner did he turn his horse in the opposite direction than he saw that even there the prairie was on fire. At the same time, the grass on his left and right burst into flames, and these began to spread swiftly towards him on all sides. He looked around for a chance of escape. There was none. He was surrounded by fire. "This deer hunt was then only a cunning trick of the enemy?" said the prince, looking around on the flames and the smoke that crackled and rolled in towards him on every side. "What a fool I was to be lured into this trap like a wild beast!" And he ground his teeth with rage as he thought of the governor's smiling treachery. Dangerous as was the situation now, the prince was not in the least confounded. In his dire extremity, he remembered the gift his aunts had given him when they parted, and it seemed to him as if she must, with prophetic foresight, have divined this hour of need. He coolly opened the flint bag that his aunt had given him and set fire to the grass near him. Then, drawing the sword of Murakumo from his sheath, he set to work to cut down the grass on either side of him with all speed. He determined to die if that were necessary, fighting for his life and not standing still waiting for death to come to him. Strange to say, the wind began to change and to blow from the opposite direction, and the fiercest portion of the burning bush, which had hitherto threatened to come upon him, was now blown right away from him, and the prince, without even a scratch on his body or a single hair burned, lived to tell the tale of his wonderful escape, while the wind, rising to a gale, overtook the governor, and he was burned to death in the flames he had set alight to kill Yamato Take. Now the prince ascribed his escape entirely to the virtue of the sword of Murakumo, and to the protection of Matarasu, the sun goddess of Issei, who controls the wind and all the elements and ensures the safety of all who pray to her in the hour of danger. Lifting the precious sword, he raised it above his head many times in token of his great respect, and as he did this, he named it Kusanagi no Tsurugi, or the grass-cleaving sword. And the place where he set fire to the grass round him and escaped from death in the burning prairie he called Yaitsu. To this day there is a spot along the great Tokaido Railway named Yaitsu, which is said to be the very place where this thrilling event took place. Thus did the brave Prince Yamato Take escape out of the snare laid for him by his enemy. He was full of resource and courage, and finally outwitted and subdued all his foes. Leaving Yaitsu, he marched eastwards, and came to the shore at Itsu, from whence he visited to cross to Katsusa. In these dangers and adventures he had been followed by his faithful, loving wife, the Princess Ototachibana. For his sake she counted the weariness of the long journeys and the dangers of war as nothing, and her love for her warrior husband was so great that she felt well repaid for all her wanderings if she could but hand him his sword when he sallied forth to battle, or minister to his wants when he returned weary to the camp. But the heart of the prince was full of war and conquest, and he cared little for the faithful Otachibana. From long exposure in travelling, and from care and grief at her lord's coldness to her, her beauty had faded, and her ivory skin was burnt brown by the sun, and the prince told her one day that her place was in the palace behind the screens at home, and not with him upon the war-path. But in spite of rebuffs and indifference on her husband's part, Ototachibana could not find it in her heart to leave him. But perhaps it would have been better for her if she had done so, for on the way to Itsu, when they came to Owari, her heart was well nigh broken. Here dwelt in a palace shaded by pine trees and approached by imposing gates the Princess Miyatsu, beautiful as a cherry blossom in the blushing dawn of spring morning. Her garments were dainty and bright, and her skin was white as snow, for she had never known what it was to be weary along the path of duty, or to walk in the heat of a summer sun. And the prince was ashamed of his sunburned wife in her travel-stained garments, and bade her remain behind while he went to visit the Princess Miyatsu. Day after day he spent hours in the gardens and the palace of his new friend, thinking only of his pleasure, and caring little for his poor wife, who remained behind to weep in the tent at the misery which had come into her life. Yet she was so faithful a wife, and her character so patient, that she never allowed a reproach to escape her lips, or a frown to mar the sweet sadness of her face. And she was never and, and she was ever ready with a smile to welcome her husband back, or usher him forth wherever he went. At last the day came when the Prince Yamato Take must depart for Itsu and cross over the sea to Katsusa, and he bade his wife to follow in his retinue as an attendant while he went to take a ceremonious farewell of the Princess Miyatsu. She came out to greet him dressed in gorgeous robes, and she seemed more beautiful than ever. And when Yamato Take saw her, he forgot his wife, his duty, and everything except the joy of the idle present, and swore that he would return to Owari and marry her when the war was over. And as he looked up when he had said these words, he met the large almond eyes of Otachibana fixed full upon him in unspeakable sadness and wonder, and he knew that he had done wrong. But he hardened his heart and rode on, caring little for the pain he had caused her. When they reached the seashore at Itsu, his men sought for boats in which to cross the straits to Katsusa, but it was difficult to find boats enough to allow all the soldiers to embark. Then the prince stood on the beach, and in the pride of his strength he scoffed and said, "This is not the sea, this is only a brook. Why do you men want so many boats? I could jump this if I could." When at last they had all embarked and were fairly on their way across the straits, the sky suddenly clouded, and a great storm arose. The waves rose mountains high, the wind howled, the lightning flashed, and the thunder rolled, and the boat, which held Otachibana and the prince and his men, was tossed from the crest to crest of the rolling waves, till it seemed that every moment must be their last, and that they must all be swallowed up in the angry sea. For King Jin, the Dragon King of the Sea, had heard Yamato Take jeer and had raised this terrible storm in anger to show the scoffing prince how awful the sea could be, though it did but look like a brook. The terrified crew lowered the sails and looked after the rudder and worked for their dear life's sake, but all in vain. The storm only seemed to increase in violence, and all gave themselves up for lost. Then the faithful Ototachibana rose, and forgetting all the grief that her husband had caused her, forgetting even that he had wearied of her, in the one great desire of her love to save him, she determined to sacrifice her life to rescue him from death if it were possible. While the waves dashed over the ship and the wind whirled round them in fury, she stood up and said, "Surely all this has come because the prince has angered Rinjin, the god of the sea, by his jesting. If so, I, Oto Tachibana, will appease the wrath of the sea god, who desires nothing less than my husband's life." Then, addressing the sea, she said, "I will take the place of his augustness, Yamato Take. I will now cast myself into your outrageous depths, giving my life for his. Therefore hear me and bring him safely to the shore of Katsusa." With these words, she leaped quickly into the boisterous sea, and the waves soon whirled her away, and she was lost to sight. Strange to say, the storm ceased at once, and the sea became as calm and smooth as the matting on which the astonished onlookers were sitting. The gods of the sea were now appeased, and the weather cleared, and the sun shone as on a summer's day. Yamato Take soon reached the opposite shore and landed safely, even as his wife Ototachibana had prayed. His prowess in war was marvelous, and he succeeded after some time in conquering the eastern barbarians, the Ainu. He ascribed his safe landing wholly to the faithfulness of his wife, who had so willingly and lovingly sacrificed herself in the hour of his utmost peril. His heart was softened at the remembrance of her, and he never allowed her to pass from his thoughts, even for a moment. Too late had he learned to esteem the goodness of her heart and the greatness of her love for him. As he was returning on his homeward way, he came to the high pass of the Usui Toge, and here he stood and gazed at the wonderful prospect beneath him. The country, from his great elevation, all lay open to his sight, a vast panorama of mountain and plain and forest, with rivers winding like silver ribbons through the land. Then far off he saw the distant sea, which shimmered like a luminous mist in the great distance, where Ototachibana had given her life for him. And as he turned towards it, he stretched out his arms, and thinking of her love, which he had scorned, and his faithlessness to her, his heart burst out into a sorrowful and bitter cry. "Asuma, Osuma, ya! Oh, my wife, my wife!" And to this day there is a district in Tokyo called Azuma, which commemorates the words of the Prince Yamato Take, and the place where his faithful wife leaped into the sea to save him is still pointed out. So, though in life the princess Ototachibana was unhappy, history keeps her memory green, and the story of her unselfishness and heroic death will never pass away. Yamato Take had now fulfilled all his father's orders. He had subdued all the rebels and rid the land of all robbers and enemies to the peace, and his renown was great, for in the whole land there was no one who could stand up against him. He was so strong in battle and wise in counsel. He was about to return straight for home by the way he had come, when the thought struck him that he would find it more interesting to take another route. So he passed through the province of Owari and came to the province of Omi. When the prince reached Omi, he found the people in a state of great excitement and fear. In many houses as he passed along, he saw the signs of mourning and heard loud lamentations. On inquiring the cause of this, he was told that a terrible monster had appeared in the mountains, who daily came down from thence and made raids on the villages, devouring whoever he could seize. Many homes had been made desolate, and the men were afraid to go out to their daily work in the fields, or the women to go to the rivers to wash their rice. When Yamato Take heard this, his wrath was kindled, and he said fiercely, "From the western end of Kyushu to the eastern corner of Yezo, I have subdued all the king's enemies. There is not one who dares to break the law or to rebel against the king. It is indeed a matter for wonder that here in this place, so near the capital, a wicked monster has dared to take up his abode and to be the terror of the king's subjects. Not long shall it find pleasure in devouring innocent folk. I will start out and kill it at once." With these words, he set out for the Ibuki mountain, where the monster was said to live. He climbed up a good distance, when all of a sudden, at a winding in the path, a monster serpent appeared before him and stopped the way. "This must be the monster," said the prince. "I do not need my sword for a serpent. I can kill him with my hands." He thereupon sprang upon the serpent and tried to strangle it to death with his bare arms. It was not long before the prodigious strength gained the mastery, and the serpent lay dead at his feet. Now a sudden darkness came over the mountain, and rain began to fall, so that for the gloom and the rain the prince could hardly see which way to take. In a short time, however, while he was groping his way down the pass, the weather cleared, and our brave hero was able to make his way quickly down the mountain. When he got back, he began to feel ill and have burning pains in his feet, so he knew that the serpent had poisoned him. So great was his suffering that he could hardly move, much less walk. So he had himself carried to a place in the mountains, famous for its hot mineral springs, which rose bubbling out of the earth, and almost boiling from the volcanic fires beneath. Yamato Take bathed daily in these waters, and gradually he felt his strength come again, and the pains left him, till at last one day he found with great joy that he was quite recovered. He now hastened to the temples of Ise, where you will remember that he prayed before undertaking this long expedition. His aunt, priestess of the shrine, who had blessed him on setting out, now came to welcome him back. He told her of the many dangers he had encountered, and of how marvelously his life had been preserved through all. And she praised his courage and his warrior's prowess, and then putting on her most magnificent robes, she returned thanks to their ancestors, the sun goddess Amaterasu, to whose protection they both ascribed the prince's wonderful preservation. Here ends the story of Prince Yamato Take of Japan.
Right.
Another one ends randomly.
So basically, dress to impress or cross-dressing for the win.
Cross-dressing for the win, yeah.
It doesn't matter if you cheat, as long as you win. Being a dick to your wife Helps
Yeah,
you in the long
chiefly.
run.
If you're royal, you can do anything.
Yes.
You're never evil.
Oh
You're
yeah,
always the hero.
and pray to the gods.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting set. And yes, it is a. This does feel like a highlight reel of a series, Feroz. That's entirely correct. This was like, did I just watch one of those? Oh, there was this Edo like Japanese series a while back, not Kenshin, but another
Mm.
one, which was really good. But it's like, did I just watch an entire series all by its own, contained within these words?
Yeah, but it has no real emotional side to it. This is, you know,
There
y-
is no
you
redemption
don't do,
for the character. There's no character development. He just
no.
stayed the same and did what he wanted. Oh no, he became more arrogant though.
Well, he in the end he faced his weakest opponent, and that one nearly killed him.
Yeah, but still,
And you know, he he never. Yeah, okay. So he felt sorry when it was too late about what he did to his wife, but he just wasn't a good husband in any way, and she and he promised to marry another woman, which he also didn't do. I don't
yeah.
know
Well,
if
at
that's
least he didn't do that.
yeah, but he might have. He
Well,
didn't decide not to do it.
no, but with this I figured like, oh no, now he's just going to, huh? Wait, now I don't have no wife anymore, so I'm single. Let's do this. That would
Yeah,
be really bad. So I'm glad that didn't happen, or at least not in story.
but if only he had decided that he wouldn't do that, that would have been better. But
Yeah,
now it's just like he could still be doing that someday.
true. See you later, furry. Good night.
Good night.
Also,
And that-
doctor has also left. No, it's a yeah, it's a bit of a. I mean, it's cool of a mighty prince who slay all the bad guys and blah 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 blah. But eh,
and also, what I found weird that his his father is also pretty weird. The king, at 16 he sends his son to face some robbers and such, and he comes back as a hero. Then he pampers him until 30 years of age, and then another challenge comes, and he's like, "No, I cannot spend a day without you. Oh, I love you so much." It's, but why did you send him out at 16 then?
true,
Didn't you love him then?
true.
He even loved him more back then than he did his elder son. So then, does he not care about his elder son at all? It's a bit. He's from a bit of a weird family, I guess.
It is a bit weird.
Yeah, they're all troubled.
Very much so. That's why they're fairy tales.
Hmm. Yes. Let's see about the last story.
Oof, this is going to be a long one.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll manage.
Or I can. No, no, it's short.
Really? It feels shorter than that feels longer than the previous one.
No,
Okay.
it's not. All right.
Good luck.
Thank you. Momotaro, or the story of the son of a peach. You son of a peach. Long, long ago, there lived an old man and an old woman, which were peasants, drunken peasants. I mean, peasants, and had to work hard to
Hey.
earn their daily rice. The old man used to go and cut grass for the farmers around. And while he was gone, the old woman, his wife, did the work of the house and worked in their own little rice field. One day the old man went to the hills as usual to cut grass, and the old woman took some clothes to the river to wash. It was nearly summer, and the country was very beautiful to see in its fresh greenness as the two old people went on their way to work. The grass on the banks of the river looked like emerald velvet, and the pussy willows along the edge of the water were shaking out their soft tassel. The breezes blew and ruffled the smooth surface of the water into wavelets, and passing on, touched the cheeks of the old couple who, for some reason they could not explain, felt very happy that morning. The old woman at last found a nice spot by the river bank and put her basket down. Then she set to work to wash the clothes. She took them one by one out of the basket and washed them in the river and rubbed them on the stones. The water was as clear as crystal, and she could see the tiny fish swimming to and fro and the pebbles at the bottom. As she was busy washing her clothes, a great peach came bumping down the stream. The old woman looked up from her work and saw this large peach. She was 60 years of age, yet in all her life she had never seen such a big peach as this. "How delicious that peach must be," she said to herself. "I must certainly get it and take it home to my old man." She stretched out her arms to try and get it, but it was quite out of her reach. She looked about for a stick, but there was not one to be seen, and if she went to look for one, she would lose the peach. Stopping a moment to think what she should do, she remembered an old charm verse. Now she began to clap her hands to keep time of the rolling of the peach down the stream, and while she clapped, she sang this song: "Distant water is bitter, the near water is sweet. Pass by the distant water and come into the sweet." I have no idea how to clap to that.
That's okay. The attempt was
So yeah,
funny.
the distant water. The near water is sweet. Pass by the distant water. Water! Water! Yeah,
Well, this
okay.
one, this is going a different route. I didn't know there was some metal in the Japanese fairy tales, but yeah,
Now
I
there
like.
is. Now there is. Okay. Strange to say, oh, strange, oh, thank you. As soon as she began to repeat this little song, "Water, water," the peach began to come nearer and nearer the bank where the old woman was standing, till at last it stopped just in front of her, so that she was able to take it up in her hands. The old woman was delighted. She could not go on with her work, so happy and excited was she. So she put all the clothes back in her bamboo basket, and with the basket on her back and the peach in her hand, she hurried homewards. It seemed a very long time to her to wait till her husband returned. The old man at last came back as the sun was setting, with a big bundle of grass on his back, so big that he was almost hidden, and she could hardly see him. He seemed very tired and used the scythe for a walking stick, leaning on it as he walked along. As soon as the old woman saw him, she called out, "Ofi-san! Old man, I have been waiting for you to come home for such a long time today." "What is the matter? Why are you so impatient?" asked the old man, wondering at her unusual eagerness. "Has anything happened while I have been away?" "Oh no," answered the old woman. "Nothing has happened. Only I have found a nice present for you." "That is good," said the old man. He then washed his feet in a basin of water and stepped up to the veranda. The old woman now ran into the little room and brought out to him from the cupboard the big peach. It felt even heavier than before. She held it up to him, saying, Just look at this! Did you ever see such a large peach in all your life? When the old man looked at the peach, he was greatly astonished and said, "This is indeed the largest peach I have ever seen. Wherever did you buy it?" "I did not buy it," answered the old woman. "I found it in the river where I was watching." And she told him the whole story. "I am very glad that you have found it. Let us eat it now, for I am hungry," said the Ophis son. He brought out the kitchen knife, and placing the peach on the board, was about to cut it when, wonderful to tell, the peach split in two of itself, and a clear voice said, "Wait a bit, old man," and out stepped a beautiful little child. The old man and his wife were both so astonished at what they saw that they fell to the ground. The child spoke again. "Don't be afraid. I am no demon or fairy. I will tell you the truth. Heaven has had compassion on you. Every day and every night you have lamented that you had no child. Your cry has been heard, and I am sent to be the son of your old age." On hearing this, the old man and his wife were very happy. They had cried night and day for sorrow at having no child to help them in their lonely old age. And now that their prayer was answered, they were so lost with joy that they did not know where to put their hands or their feet. First the old man took the child up in his arms, and then the old woman did the same, and they named him Momotaro, or son of a peach, because he had come out of a peach. The years passed quickly, and the child grew to be 15 years of age. He was taller and far stronger than any other boys of his own age. He had a handsome face and a heart full of courage, and he was very wise for his years. The old couple's pleasure was very great when they looked at him, for he was just what they thought a hero ought to be like. One day Momotaro came to his foster father and said solemnly, "Father, by a strange chance, we have become father and son. Your goodness to me has been higher than the mountain grasses, which it was your daily work to cut, and deeper than the river where my mother washes the clothes. I do not know how to thank you enough." "Why," answered the old man, "it is a matter of course that a father should bring up his son. When you are older, it will be your turn to take care of us. So after all, there will be no profit or loss between us. All will be equal. Indeed, I am rather surprised that you should thank me in this way." And the old man looked bothered. "I hope you will be patient with me," said Momotaro. "But before I begin to pay back your goodness to me, I have a request to make, which I hope you will grant me above everything else." "I will let you do whatever you wish, for you are quite different to all the other boys." "Then let me go away at once." What do you say? Do you wish to leave your old father and mother and go away from your old home?" "I will surely come back again, if you let me go now." "Where are you going?" "You must think it strange that I want to go away," said Momotaro, "because I have not yet told you my reason. Far away from here, to the northeast of Japan, there is an island in the sea. The island is a stronghold of a band of devils. I have often heard how they invade this land, kill and rob the people, and carry off all they can find. They are not only very wicked, but they are disloyal to our emperor and disobey his laws. They are also cannibals, for they kill and eat some of the poor people who are so unfortunate as to fall into their hands. These devils are very hateful beings. I must go to conquer them and bring back all the plunder of which they have robbed this land. It is for this reason that I want to go away for a short time. The old man was much surprised at hearing all this from a mere boy of 15. He thought it best to let the boy go. He was strong and fearless, and besides all this, the old man knew he was no common child, for he had been sent to them as a gift from heaven, and he felt quite sure that the devils would be powerless to harm him. "All you say is very interesting, Momotaro," said the old man. "I will not hinder you in your determination. You may go if you wish. Go to the island as soon as ever you like, and destroy the demons and bring peace to the land." "Thank you for your kindness," said Momotaro, who began to get ready to go that very day. He was full of courage and did not know what fear was. The old man and woman at once set to work to pound rice in the kitchen mortar to make cakes for Momotaro to take with him on his journey. At last, the cakes were made and Momotaro was ready to start on his long journey. Parting is always sad, so it was now. The eyes of the two old people were filled with tears, and their voices trembled as they said, "Go with all care and speed. We expect you back victorious." Momotaro was very sorry to leave his old parents, though he knew he was coming back as soon as he could, for he thought of how lonely they would be while he was away. But he said goodbye quite bravely. "I am going now. Take good care of yourselves while I am away. Goodbye." And he stepped quickly out of the house. In silence, the eyes of Momotaro and his parents met in farewell. Momotaro now hurried on his way till it was midday. He began to feel hungry, so he opened his bag and took out one of the rice cakes and sat down under a tree by the side of the road to eat it. While he was thus having his lunch, a dog almost as large as a colt came running out of the high grass. He made straight for Momotaro and, showing his teeth, said in a fierce way, "You are a rude man to pass my field without asking permission first. If you leave me all the cakes you have in your bag, you may go. Otherwise, I will bite you till I kill you." Momotaro only laughed scornfully. "What is that you are saying? Do you know who I am? I am Momotaro, and I am on my way to subdue the devils in their island stronghold to the northeast of Japan. If you try to stop me on my way, then I will cut you in two from the head downwards." The dog's manner at once changed. His tail dropped between his legs, and coming near, he bowed so low that his forehead touched the ground. "What do I hear? The name of Momotaro? Are you indeed Momotaro? I have often heard of your great strength. Not knowing who you were, I have behaved in a very stupid way. Will you please pardon my rudeness? Are you indeed on your way to invade the island of devils? If you will take such a rude fellow with you as one of your followers, I shall be very, very grateful to you." "I think I can take you with me if you wish to go," said Momotaro. "Thank you," said the dog. "By the way, I am very hungry. Will you give me one of the cakes you are carrying?" "This is the best kind of cake there is in Japan," said Momotaro. "I cannot spare you a whole one. I will give you half of one." "Thank you very much," said the dog, taking the piece thrown to him. Then Momotaro got up, and the dog followed. For a long time they walked over the hills and through the valleys. As they were going along the animal came down from a little from a an animal came down from a tree a little ahead of them. The creature soon came up to Momotaro and said, "Good morning, Momotaro. You are welcome in this part of the country. Will you allow me to go with you?" The dog answered jealously, "Momotaro already has a dog to accompany him. Of what use is a monkey like you in battle? We are on our way to fight the devils. Get away!" The dog and the monkey began to quarrel and bite, for these two animals always hate each other. "Now, don't quarrel," said Momotaro, putting himself between them. "Wait a moment, dog!" "It is not at all dignified for you to have such a creature as that following you," said the dog. "What do you know about it?" asked Momotaro, and pushing aside the dog, he spoke to the monkey. "Who are you?" "I am a monkey living in these hills," replied the monkey. "I heard of your expedition to the island of devils, and I have come to go with you. Nothing will please me more than to follow you." "Do you really wish to go to the island of devils and fight with me?" "Yes, sir," replied the monkey. "I admire your courage," said Momotaro. "Here is a piece of one of my fine rice cakes. Come along." So the monkey joined Momotaro. The dog and the monkey did not get on well together. They were always snapping at each other as they went along, and always wanting to have a fight. This made Momotaro very cross, and at last he sent the dog on ahead with a flag, and put the monkey behind with a sword, and he placed himself between them with a war fan, which is made of iron. By and by they came to a large field. Here a bird flew down and alighted on the ground just in front of the little party. It was the most beautiful bird Momotaro had ever seen. On its body there were 5 different robes of feathers, and its head was covered with a scarlet cap. The dog at once ran at the bird and tried to seize and kill it, but the bird struck out his spurs and flew at the dog's tail, and the fight went hard with both. Momotaro, as he looked on, could not help admiring the bird. It showed so much spirit in the fight. It would certainly make a good fighter. Momotaro went up to the two combatants, and holding the dog back, said to the bird, "You rascal! You are hindering my journey. Surrender at once, and I will take you with me. If you don't, I will set this dog to bite your head off." Then the bird surrendered at once, and begged to be taken into Momotaro's company. "I do not know what excuse to offer for quarreling with the dog, your servant, but I did not see you. I am a miserable bird called a pheasant. It is very generous of you to pardon my rudeness and to take me with you. Please allow me to follow you behind the dog and the monkey." "I congratulate you on surrendering so soon," said Momotaro, smiling. "Come and join us in our raid on the devils." "Are you going to take this bird with you also?" asked the dog, interrupting. "Why do you ask such an unnecessary question? Didn't you hear what I said? I take the bird with me because I wish to," said the dog. Then Momotaro stood and gave this order. "Now, all of you must listen to me. The first thing necessary in an army is harmony. It is a wise saying which says that advantage on earth is better than advantage in heaven. Union amongst ourselves is better than any earthly gain. When we are not at peace amongst ourselves, it is no easy thing to subdue an enemy. From now, you three, the dog, the monkey, and the pheasant, must be friends with one mind. The one who first begins a quarrel will be discharged on the spot. All the three promised not to quarrel. The pheasant was now made a member of Momotaro's suite and received half a cake. Momotaro's influence was so great that the three became good friends and hurried onwards with him as their leader. Hurrying on day after day, they at last came out upon the shore of the northeastern sea. There was nothing to be seen as far as the horizon, not a sign of any island. And all that broke the stillness was the rolling of the waves upon the shore. Now the dog and the monkey and the pheasant had come very bravely all the way through the long valleys and over the hills, but they had never seen the sea before. And for the first time since they set out, they were bewildered and gazed at each other in silence. How were they to cross the water and to get to the island of the devils? Momotaro soon saw that they were daunted by the sight of the sea, and to try them he spoke loudly and roughly. Why do you hesitate? Are you afraid of the sea? Oh, what cowards you are! It is impossible to take such weak creatures as you with me to fight the demons. It will be far better for me to go alone. I discharge you all at once. The three animals were taken aback at this sharp reproof and clung to Momotaro's sleeve, begging him not to send them away. Please, Momotaro, said the dog. We have come this far, said the monkey. It's inhuman to leave us here, said the pheasant. We are not afraid of the sea, the monkey said again. Please, do take us with you, said the pheasant. Do, please, said the dog. They had now gained a little courage, so Momotaro said, Well, then, I will take you with me. But be careful. Momotaro now got a small ship, and they all got on board. The wind and weather were fair, and the ship went like an arrow over the sea. It was the first time they had ever been on the water, and so at first the dog, the monkey, and the pheasant were frightened at the waves and the rolling of the vessel, but by degrees they grew accustomed to the water and were quite happy again. Every day they paced the deck of their little ship, eagerly looking out for the demon's island. When they grew tired of this, they told each other stories of all their exploits of which they were proud, and then played games together. And Momotaro found much to amuse him in listening to the three animals and watching their antics. And in this way, he forgot that the way was long and that he was tired of the voyage and of doing nothing. He longed to be at work killing the monsters who had done so much harm in his country. As the wind blew in their favor and they met no storms, the ship made a quick voyage, and one day, when the sun was shining brightly at the sight of land rewarded the four watchers at the bow. Momotaro knew at once that what they saw was the devil's stronghold. On the top of the precipitous shore, looking out to sea, was a large castle. Now that this enterprise was close at hand, he was deep in thought with his head leaning on his hands, wondering how he should begin the attack. His three followers watched him, waiting for orders. At last he called to the pheasant. It is a great advantage for us to have you with us, said Momotaro to the bird, for you have good wings. Fly at once to the castle and engage the demons to make fight. We will follow you. The pheasant at once obeyed. He flew off from the ship, beating the air gladly with his wings. The bird soon reached the island and took up his position on the roof in the middle of the castle, calling out loudly, "All you devils, listen to me! The great Japanese general Momotaro has come to fight you and take your stronghold from you. If you wish to save your lives, surrender at once. And in token of your submission, you must break off the horns that grow on your forehead. If you do not surrender at once, but make up your mind to fight, we, the pheasant, the dog, and the monkey, will kill you all by biting and tearing you to death." The horned demons, looking up and only seeing a pheasant, laughed and said, "A wild pheasant indeed! It is ridiculous to hear such words from a mean thing like you. Wait till you get a blow from one of our iron bars." Very angry indeed were the devils. They shook their horns and their shocks of red hair fiercely, and rushed to put on tiger skin trousers to make themselves look more terrible. They then brought out great iron bars and ran to where the pheasant perched over their heads and tried to knock him down. The pheasant flew to one side to escape the blow, and then attacked the head of the first one, and then another demon. He flew round and round them, beating the air with his wings so fiercely and ceaselessly that the devils began to wonder whether they had to fight one or many more birds. In the meantime, Momotaro had brought his ship to the land. As they had approached, he saw that the shore was like a precipice, and that the large castle was surrounded by high walls and large iron gates and was strongly fortified. Momotaro landed, and with the hope of finding some way of entrance, walked up the path towards the top, followed by the monkey and the dog. They soon came upon two beautiful damsels washing clothes in the stream. Momotaro saw that the clothes were blood-stained, and that as the two maidens washed, the tears were falling fast down their cheeks. He stopped and spoke to them. "Who are you, and why do you weep?" "We are captives of the Demon King. We were carried away from our homes to the island, and though we are daughters of daimyos, we are obliged to be his servants, and one day he will kill us." And the maidens held up the blood-stained clothes. "And eat us, and there is no one to help us." And their tears burst out afresh at this horrible thought. "I will rescue you," said Momotaro. "Do not weep any more. Only show me how I may get into the castle." Then the two ladies led the way and showed Momotaro a little back door in the lowest part of the castle wall, so small that Momotaro could hardly crawl in. The pheasant, who was all this time fighting hard, saw Momotaro and his little band rush in at the back. Momotaro's onslaught was so furious that the devils could not stand against him. At first, their foe had been a single bird, the pheasant, but now that Momotaro and the dog and the monkey had arrived, they were bewildered. For the four enemies fought like 100, so strong were they. Some of the devils fell off the parapet of the castle and were dashed to pieces on the rocks beneath. Others fell into the sea and were drowned. Many were beaten to death by the three animals. The chief of the devils at last was the only one left. He made up his mind to surrender, for he knew that his enemy was stronger than mortal man. He came up humbly to Momotaro and threw down his iron bar, and kneeling down at the victor's feet, he broke off the horns on his head in token of submission, for they were the sign of his strength and power. "I am afraid of you," he said meekly. "I cannot stand against you. I will give you all the treasure hidden in this castle if you will spare my life." Momotaro laughed. It is not like you, big devil, to beg for mercy, is it? I cannot spare your wicked life, however much you beg, for you have killed and tortured many people and robbed our country for many years. Then Momotaro tied the devil chief up and gave him into the monkey's charge. Having done this, he went into all the rooms of the castle and set the prisoners free and gathered together all the treasure he found. The dog and the pheasant carried home the plunder, and thus Momotaro returned triumphantly to his home, taking with him the devil's chief as captive. The two poor damsels, daughters of daimyos, and others whom the wicked demon had carried off to be his slaves, were taken safely to their own homes and delivered to their parents. The whole country made a hero of Momotaro on his triumphant return, and rejoiced that the country was now freed from the robber devils who had been a terror of the land for a long time. The old couple's joy was greater than ever, and the treasure Momotaro had brought home with him enabled them to live in peace and plenty to the end of their days.
Well, there's I more of the story. Don't be animals can be your friends and really vicious.
Um, or keep your animals under control.
uh,
Keep,
it would
keep your
have
subject in line.
it would have been great timing if one of your cats would have just knocked your camera off right now. Just on cue.
They, I wouldn't have said this if they were close, but I have already appeased the gods and goddesses of this house before the stream, so I
Hmm.
think I'm safe.
Well, there was I think this is indeed. I agree with Ferris. This was the best story of the day. I think.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. It was not much of a competition actually.
No, I think the
This is
sec.
actually a bit of a story.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
yeah. The other one was like, and suddenly a dragon appears. What?
The end.
But, huh? What happened? Also, don't
This
be a dick.
actually, yeah, this was actually a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good story. And it went overtime.
Yeah, I noticed, but I didn't start at exactly the time. I started a little later because the second story was longer.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, I don't mind.
it's still
It's all
okay.
good.
But I haven't I don't really have an uh evil advice based on this story. What lesson can we learn? Uh
Two
because
lit.
keep your animals in line, it's not really evil.
There were two little boxes.
Two little boxes.
Yeah, in each of the previous stories there was always a box with something in it.
There were no boxes today,
No.
but there was the goddess
Oh yeah,
Matarasu. She has been a
yeah.
character before.
And the Dragon
We
King
have
of the Sea,
Rinjin. So there have been some, yeah.
reoccurring characters.
And his Augustness has also been a recurring character, or at least the title of his Augustness.
Hmm.
Um, and the monkey. There's a monkey in this story.
Yeah, there was a rabbit in the two stories back, so or
Yeah,
hare.
but the monkey was also in the previous story time.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been more monkeys. This one, last time the monkey was evil, and this time the monkey was good.
I I can't think of anything evil either.
Yeah, no, this was
It
just a
feels
good
it
story.
was
It's weird.
eh. Well, maybe next time there will be a rather evil story.
If anyone still has this enlightened moment, Just let me know. There has to be an evil moral to this story. Can't be, or else this
Evil
is
more
really
for beat
evil moral. Yeah.
beat people up, get rich. No, but there's
Don't
demons
look
up
for
there.
evil when there's none. Well, there must be a little bit.
Hmm. No, I can't think of anything evil right
All right.
now. Oh no,
So,
underpay your subjects.
oh yeah. Oh, just do you know those people from Marktplaats that if you ask for a price, they always offer half?
Yeah,
That's the evil moral of the story. Offer
yes,
half.
offer half. I mean,
That's the story. Now we've got it. Offer half.
yes, offer half or at least underpay the ones that will fight for you in battle.
Yeah, they will give their life, and you will give them half a pie.
Yeah, or half
That's how
a.
much you care about them.
Yes. What's your life's worth? Half a rice cake.
Yeah,
Though half a rice cake can be considered riches in the correct circumstances, so yeah.
apparently.
But not this one. I mean, really?
No.
Half a rice cake?
Yeah, that's rice isn't that super expensive.
Hey, Ritchie, I'm going into battle. Do you want to risk your life? I'll give you half a rice cake.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's my lucky day.
No, no, Ferals, the monkey and the bird also got half a rice cake.
They did, yeah.
No, yeah, that's yeah, always underpay your army. Yeah, that's good.
Else will give us half our life.
Eh,
I'll take it.
did you have it already?
Yeah, I'm just imagining else just like only giving half the life and going home cripple.
Which half?
Like
Okay.
this is enough. Need more cake.
Yeah, I would the other half as well.
Yeah. Surrender your cake,
Surrender your cake now.
or I will walk out of this battle before you have your victory. People will see that you're just stupid without me.
Also, there were a couple of YouTube visitors actually. Someone
Oh,
named
that's so
Cloud of
nice.
Dreams, who I've been chatting with a bit. So that was fun.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah.
Right.
So I told him a bit about what we do on here. Hang
Oh, that's
around, weird stuff. Yes.
mm.
So,
Yes. All right.
but I think this will be the end of the stream. We already got about 20 minutes overtime, so round it up a lot. Anyway,
Yes.
uh,
Thank you all for being here.
thank you, Nancy, for your wonderful storytelling, the voices, and the lovely tongue twisters you had to do.
Oh, there were so many today.
Yes, well, that'll teach you to choose Japanese fairy tales.
One more time, and then I'll
One,
find something easier.
yeah. Wait, this is longer than cat. Nope. Anyway, see you all next Sunday, where we will hopefully have a regular-ish stream again. Stream. Wow, suddenly I do this sound.
Oh, that's quite awesome.
Yes, budget Sean
Here.
Connery. Anyway, see you all next Sunday for hopefully another Foxes and Coffee.
See you there.
Bye bye.